Hi guys. Hopefully my sound is working. Okay. Hopefully my sound is working. If not, someone will just have to tell me and we'll just go from there. I'm going to go ahead and share my live real quick while I wait for people to jump on. And we are doing caramel apples today. Yes, I can hear it because I'm watching my own live. Perfect. Okay, hit share. Join us for caramel apples and Halloween Wars. I'm sure you guys know what we're here for. So this is the monthly live stream Bakealong. I just started doing these and they should be every single month. I'm still getting in the habit of doing this every single month on top of everything else that I do. So this is for my Facebook group, which is an open and free Facebook group that is the Sugar Rush Squad Cake and Baking community. And you guys can just join us for a free bake along because I love baking. I love making treats and desserts, and it's just, I thought something that would be great for community building and connecting more with my audience because I'm not always great at responding to comments and actually staying on top of all of that. It's very overwhelming when you start getting a lot of attention online. Everyone and their dog decides to reach out to you. And even when it's just like really nice comments that I want to reply to, it's so hard, so hard to reply to everybody. And then you get like other people who always like reach out to you for other reasons that are not even cake related, but it's like you're always on people's minds, and it is very hard to respond. So I'm trying to connect better with my audience, the people who like to follow me, and I like to teach. So we're going to do these monthly bake-alongs. Okay, I'm just sharing this to my Facebook, and hopefully people start joining in a bit. I am going to talk about Halloween Wars. So I'm sure you guys know that I'm going to be on this season of Halloween Wars. This is the All Stars season 14. So every team this season is going to be led by a returning champion. It's a very unique season, and I was very fortunate to be casted on this one. I'm sure you guys also know that I was on last year's Halloween Wars, and I did not make it past my first episode, which was such a bummer. But they actually let me return immediately afterwards to film this. I actually filmed those two seasons only about probably 8 months apart from each other. And so that was a little bit crazy to film two seasons back to back in the same year. And now it's finally airing. I recorded this about a year ago. So it's just crazy. I love Halloween Wars. I love it. It's an interesting experience. Would I do it again? I don't think so. We'll see. Okay, I'm just going to wash my hands and we can get started. I am actually having a watch party this Sunday at my house with my friends and family. We're going to be watching the first episode or first two episodes of Halloween Wars. I'm only on one of the two. And I always do like a tasting party with my watch parties. So basically, I recreate the tasting element that is on that episode. And I wait until the judges try it at the end of the episode, and then I pass it out to all my friends and family and they get to try it at the same time as the judges. So I can't tell you what is going to be this Sunday, what I made as a tasting element for my team, but I'll have to talk about it afterwards. I can't spoil anything, but it was a very, very interesting tasting element. It was a weird challenge that I had to do. I swear I have the worst luck. So, anyways, we'll talk about that more later. But for today, I thought it would be fun to do caramel apples because who doesn't love caramel apples? And they're so expensive. Or you could just make it yourself, spend more money. Because caramel's not cheap. Toppings are not cheap. But in the long run, it would be cheaper, I think. Okay, so I, okay, caramel apples sound easy, but I know a lot of people really struggle with them. So I'm just going to talk about like all the tips and tricks that I use to make the caramel apples. And we are going to be using, actually, I've never used this brand before. This is Heavenly Caramels, Soft and Delicious. So this was the caramel I was able to get a hold of. I usually buy Peter's caramel. So they look relatively the same, they're just different brands. I've been using Peter's caramel for years. I'm sure this is going to do the same job. I hope. But anyway, so I get this at my local cake supply store. There's also a restaurant supply store that sells these near me, so I'm assuming you guys will be able to get a hold of something like this. I've never used those like caramel wraps where it's like already rolled out caramel and then you wrap it around your apples. I've never used that. I'm sure it works great. These are just a little bit different techniques that we're going to be using. So these caramels are almost $30. This is $26 that I spent a couple years ago, and then this one I just barely bought was $27. So they are a little bit expensive. They used to be around 20. They've been slowly going up, much like everything in life. That's inflation for you. So with these, they usually just come in a block, and I just keep hacking off pieces of that caramel. I've had this one for a while, but it wasn't enough to do the live stream today. So this I've already cut up and I've already started preheating my caramel so you guys don't have to wait as long. But basically it comes in this giant block, and all I did was I cut off about half of it, but I did cut it into chunks before I put it in a bowl and microwaved it. I just feel like it heats up more evenly when it's in different pieces versus like one giant block where it's like overheating the outside but not getting to the center of that. So yes, all you have to do is take this caramel, cut it up, and I just use a microwave. If you're doing a ton of caramel apples, then you could do a crock pot. I've heard of people using a crock pot, so they'll heat the caramel to the temperature that they need, and then they just like leave it in the crock pot at that temperature, and they don't have to keep reheating it. I only bought 6 apples. I'm not making like 5 dozen apples that I'm trying to sell or something. So, you decide what works best for you. I don't have a crock pot, and I don't feel like borrowing one, so we're just doing a simple microwave method. Okay, so you can see here that I've already started heating up my caramel. It's already getting a little bit runny, and I'm just going to stir this every now and then just to make sure that the heat is evenly distributing. And I've already started this, but we do have to do some prep work on the apples as well, so we're going to kind of bounce around a little bit. It is what it is. Let's just put this on the side. Okay, I'm going to keep heating this in the microwave. So basically, like, you can see this is runny, and it might look like it's runny enough to dip your apple in, but you actually want to get this to a certain temperature or a certain consistency. Basically, I like to bring it to right before it's like really boiling, because if it's boiling too much, you will get air. Like when it's boiling, it's like all of these air bubbles. You'll get air bubbles on your apples. It won't be as clean. Whereas if you don't heat it enough, you might be able to dip your apple and cover it, but if it's not heated enough, then it'll actually slough off your apple. It won't cling to it like it should. So we have to find like a good balance here. I did notice on the back of one of these boxes, it says to heat the caramel to 160 to 180 degrees Fahrenheit to completely coat your apple. So we're going to shoot for about that. I typically don't do a specific temperature. I just base it off the looks, but we'll go with the temperature today. Okay, you will notice me looking over quite a bit so that I can see if there's any comments. And yeah, let's just heat this up. I would say it could easily take like 6 to 10 minutes maybe, depending on how much caramel you have in your bowl to heat it all up to where you need to. So I usually just do like a couple, maybe like 2 minutes at a time, and then I just keep checking on it and stirring it and just kind of gauging how much more time I need. Okay, so hopping over to the apples, I've already washed these so that you don't have to watch my back at the sink. But basically, I have my apples here. I did put this in a water bath for a little bit, and what I like to do with all my fruits is I put them in a water bath and then I do a splash of white vinegar, and that just helps to clean your fruit. I think some people do baking soda. I've always just done vinegar. So we do have our apples here. I put them in a water bath and then I kind of lightly scrubbed the outside as well. And the reason I did this is because your fruits, especially your apples, are covered in wax. So they get coated in wax. I think it helps them to last longer on the shelves at the store. And that's all fine and dandy, except for like it actually can make your caramel not cling to your apple, and that's not good. So we want to kind of lightly scrub these down and get rid of that waxy coating that's on there. So I've already done that. These are still a little bit wet, so I'm just going to dry these off. I'm also just making sure I don't feel any of that wax still on these apples. And I'm actually, did I mention I'm serving these at my watch party this uh, Sunday? Sunday the 22nd, September 22nd, I'm going to be doing my watch party for Halloween Wars. Someone's trying to get a hold of me. My phone is going off like crazy. Okay, we'll just put my phone on silent. That's good. Okay, just drying these off. I've heard of people who actually like scrub their apples. Like they lightly score the outside of their apple, so some of that inside of the apple is exposed. They kind of scratch off the skin a bit. And that would be very helpful to get the caramel to stick, but I prefer not to do it that way because I don't know if that would affect the shelf life of your apple when you have uh, the inside exposed even a little bit, even if it does get covered in caramel. So I just prefer not to do that. I just make sure that I don't have any of that wax. And so far, I haven't had issues with caramel sloughing off of my apples. Okay, so we've already cleaned these. We can set these off to the side. Okay, let me check on the caramel. It's a lot of balancing everything. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see. There are bubbles in my caramel. So I did heat it to a pretty good temperature, I would say. I'm just going to stir this, which is also kind of releasing some of those bubbles. With anything with baking, you don't want to be too aggressive with stirring it. That's actually just going to incorporate more air bubbles. We don't want that. And I actually did bring out a thermometer. This is just my infrared. Oops, Fahrenheit. Okay, so the box says 160 to 180. I'm at 210, which is totally fine because we're still prepping the apples. So I'm just going to lightly stir this. Perfect. And then we just have to prep our apples a little bit more by using apple sticks. So I also bought these at a local cake supply store. These are just wooden dowels, basically, kind of thick dowels, and they do have, it's not a super sharp end, but it does have a pointed end, and that's what we're going to stab into the apple. I don't know if people remove the stems, but we'll just go ahead. My mom wants me to serve these apples at my watch party this Sunday. She was like, oh, you can serve them to everybody. Mostly her, I'm sure. Now I can't get all these stems out. That's okay. Okay, so with these, I usually just take my little apple stick. I push it in right into the top of the apple, and I try to keep it straight. And just push it in enough. You don't want to barely push it into the apple because you're going to meet a little bit of resistance in the caramel. And so if this is barely holding onto your apple and you're dipping it in this thick caramel and then you're going to be dipping it in other things, you don't want the apple to come off. Okay, I can actually see the stick ever so slightly coming out the end, so that is good. It is holding on to my apple, and then we'll just do the rest here. So Halloween Wars has been my dream show for a very long time. Um, it's I would say, a lot of people's dream show because it's just, I consider it the hardest cake show out there because you're with, I believe this is the only cake show where you're with a team of people that you've never met before. So you don't choose your teammates. You apply as an individual. You say, hey, I want to apply as a cake artist, a sugar artist, a pumpkin carver. They cast you, and then you meet your team. Um, Not that long before filming, and in my case, it was even shorter than everyone else because I was casted 4 days before. Because I'd already done the show. I actually, as you probably know, I've done Holiday Wars back in 2020. I did Halloween Wars last year, and so I was one of the only people who have done both shows, and I'm kind of local to where they filmed the show. That helps too. But yeah, so they called me up and they said, "Hey, we'd like you to be an alternate for this show because you've done both shows." So I was actually an alternate for Halloween Wars and for Holiday Wars, and and let's see, I'm the only local person to where they film who has done both shows and who is also a sugar artist, which is a really hard role for them to fill. There's not that many sugar artists out there, and they just have a hard time finding people who can do it. And so they called me out of the blue. I didn't even interview for that season. I didn't try to interview for it. And they called me up and they said, "Hey, we might need you." And so I said, "Okay, that's fine." And 4 days before, someone did drop out, and they put me on a team. This is hard to put in. Come on, Apple. Good enough. Okay. So, yes, so they casted me only 4 days before. I met my team 4 days before. 3 days? 3 or 4 days before. I met my team, and that is Alan, he's a pumpkin carver, and Shalane, she's a cake artist. So, as I mentioned before, uh, every team is captained by a former champion, and Shalane has been on Halloween Wars before. She is a returning champion, and she is actually a I believe, three-time undefeated Food Network champion. So she's just fantastic at what she does. Both of them really are. And I was put on a really good team. Just some of the most optimistic, lovely people I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And that's a really big deal for me. I love being on a team with people who care to be there and like who are nice and have good attitudes and are very optimistic because that's not always the case on these shows. Even when you pick your teammates, sometimes you find out very quickly that they can't handle it. Um, and so, yes, that's happened to me quite a few times, or people who just have bad attitudes in general, and that's not always fun. But I had really great teammates, um, and we got along so well. I love them with all my heart, and I'm really excited for you guys to see how far we got on the show. Uh, as you may know, let's see, there's 8 teams this season. It's usually 9 teams. There's only 8 teams this season, and it's an elimination style show. So every week they will air a new episode, and every week a new team will be eliminated. So you just have to be not the worst person that week. And hopefully you become the champion. So yes, there will be 7 episodes total, but that doesn't mean I'm on every single episode. The first 2 episodes, they actually split up the teams and they call them qualifying episodes. So they put 4 on each episode and then they eliminate each time and then they bring everyone together. So that would be 6 teams because they only have so much space. They can't put all 8 on one set. So it dwindles it down, and we have all 6 teams the following week, and then it'll go down to 5 teams, 4 teams, 3 teams, and then the top 2 in the last episode. So yeah, fun stuff. Okay, double checking to make sure we don't have any comments yet. Okay, that's okay. This is also great for replay. So you can see how beautiful and runny this caramel is. Let's double check the temperature. So it's at 194. So it's not boiling. It's a little bit hotter than what this recommends, but that's okay. We don't have like a lot of awful air bubbles. I'm also going to get a tray ready. So I do have my cookie sheet with some Silpat mats on top, and that's really going to help out so I have somewhere to put my apples. So typically, and it's been a long time since I've done caramel apples, but let's just go for it. I don't think anything has changed. But I usually just go right for it. We just start dipping. So usually I just kind of tip my caramel over, and this way it'll be easier to dip the whole apple. So I'm just going to dip it right in, and then I usually just kind of swirl it until it's evenly coated, and then we're just going to pull it up. And I like to let some of this slough off first. Like, we don't want all of that caramel. That's a lot. Like, I have a sweet tooth, but there's a limit to how much sugar I personally can handle. And you can see like how much is trying to come off. And if we are going way too fast with this and we're not giving it time for some of that to come off, then it will start to form like a puddle or feet at the bottom of our apple when we set it down. So I'm just going to very gently scrape off the excess on the bottom because I really don't need that much at the bottom. Look at that. I have a beautiful apple. It's really that easy. Now, I'm also going to do some compound coating. We're going to do some toppings. I have a ton of toppings just sitting right here. I know you guys can see some of it. So we will be doing some toppings as well, because who doesn't love a flavored caramel apple? I'm a huge sucker for caramel apples, but I am allergic. Shocker. Um, I love the caramel so much, but it has corn syrup in it, so I can't eat a lot. It gives me like an upset stomach. But I definitely will be eating some of these, so I'm going to make some flavors that I'm excited for, and then I'll make some flavors that other people might be excited for. I know this is so exciting to just watch me dip apples. Okay, I think we're good to scrape off the extra. And we'll do like a couple different flavors. Ooh. Okay. So food or Halloween Wars is my fifth TV show that I've done, or this season is my fifth TV show. I also was on Santa's Baking Blizzard. That was my first show back in 2019. I was the baker of my team, and I was doing some cake work on that one. Um, and then in 2020, the awful year of 2020, I did go film Holiday Wars, and I think that was like I filmed that in August or something, so things were still really crazy then. But I did Holiday Wars that season, and that one we ended up winning 2 of the 6 episodes, so we did a pretty good job on that one. And then almost immediately after that, I went and filmed The Big Bake. So that is a Canadian Food Network show, and then a while later, it did air in the U.S. That was one of the funnest experiences I had on that set, and I did have to quarantine for 2 solid weeks. I don't know if I can say that, but I had to quarantine for 2 solid weeks to do The Big Bake, and that was fun. Like, I literally sat in a hotel room because this was during COVID and it filmed in Canada, and I was American. But yeah, they put us up in a hotel room, our own individual rooms, and I sat in a room for 2 solid weeks to film that show, which was great. They paid me for it. So, again, I don't know if I can say that, but whatever. I signed NDAs. No big deal. I'm just going to reheat that just a little bit. I can just tell it's getting a little extra thick. And yeah. So anyways, I did the Big Bake. That was a really fun experience. I got to choose my teammates. Love that. And we ended up winning that episode as well. So I got paid to quarantine and I won some money from that. So that was a pretty big payday for me. I didn't get it all at the same time, but it was still pretty cool to do that experience. And if you don't know, I went to a cake design college in Toronto and I filmed the Big Bake 21 minutes down the street from where I used to live in Toronto. So that was just really cool to return back to that city that I love so much, where I really learned so much of what I do now, and to go and compete on this big show. That was so fun. Okay. And then I took a little bit of a break after the big bake because I was really sick at the time. I had parosmia. I talk about it a lot, but I had a distorted sense of smell and taste from COVID. So unfortunately, I got really sick. I stopped doing cake orders. I didn't do any shows for a while. And yeah, just took a bit of a break in life. And then, let's see, in 2023, so last year, I did Halloween Wars. Got eliminated on my first episode. They loved my tasting element, but that was not good enough to keep us there. And there's so much I could say about that, but ooh, I signed NDAs. But anyways, so yes, so I did Halloween Wars, and I didn't think I would ever return to do that show again, which was such a bummer. I'm like, oh, this is the one time I get to do this show. Like, that sucks. And then I ended up getting casted for the next season because they changed their film schedule, and I actually was able to say yes again. So I returned for this current season that is about to air. And as far as any other shows coming up after this, you'll just have to wait and find out. But yes, so did that show. That was fun. Win or lose, it was an amazing experience. I met amazing people. I had the best team. Like, they were just so sweet and just talented and just so fun to be around. Like, we just had fun. So I still talk to the cast of this next season that's about to air. I still talk to that cast all the time. Um, I still talk to my team. They actually have been chatting this morning about meeting up again, and that's really fun. Um, if you've been following me for a bit, then you know that last year in December, I went to California and I actually got to work on the Wonka red carpet premiere, and that was with my teammates. I just couldn't say who they were at the time, but I went and like met up with my teammates, and we got to hang out in December, and we got to go and do the Wonka red carpet together. So that was cool. I only did like a small piece of it, but it was still like a really, really fun experience, and just kind of opened up uh, a lot of things that I want to do later in life. I want to start doing other things outside of cakes. So that kind of showed me what else there is out there. Anyways, super fun. I'm having a hard time because I'm running out of caramel, and it's like getting harder to dip these, but we only have two left, okay? And then we're going to move on. We're not going to worry about the top of this one as much. Okay. I'm just going to reheat this a little bit more. Okay, so anyways, um, yeah, so this is going to be a great experience. And all the shows I've been on, except for the first show, I've been a sugar artist. So that means I do the pulled and blown sugar, the really delicate stuff. The very first show I was able to do cake, but ever since then I've only done isomalt, which is crazy. I mean, I step in and help with cake, but I don't even really get to do cake on these shows, which is like my highest specialty. But because I know isomalt, they keep having me do isomalt because that's such a hard skill for these shows to cast. And so they're like, "Oh, you know how to use isomalt?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but also I want to be a cake artist." And they're like, "Yeah, you're going to be a sugar artist. You're not going to be a cake artist." So that's fun. But typically, when you do these shows and you get casted as a sugar artist, you're also the pastry chef, which I found out the hard way, actually. Okay, I overboiled this. That's totally fine. But I'm going to start heating up some other stuff as well. Let's start multitasking a little bit here. So anyways, my first No, my second show, Holiday Wars, like I said, was in 2020, and I applied to be a cake artist on that show. And when I did my interview for them, like on the phone, they're like, okay, tell us more about yourself. Like, what do you do? What do you like working with? Blah, blah, blah. So I just started listing stuff off. And I'm like, well, I love to work with all mediums. I love fondant and modeling chocolate and this and that and isomalt. And the person who was interviewing me was perked up. And they were like, wait, you know how to work with isomalt? And I'm like, well, yeah, a little bit. And they're like, will you apply to be a sugar artist as well? And I was like, well, I don't know if I have enough experience to be a sugar artist on the show. Like, that's a little extreme. I've taken a bunch of classes, but doing isomalt to the size and scale that you need for these TV shows, like, that's a whole nother level of crazy. They didn't really care. They're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you know how to use iSmall, so let's get you on the show. So, anyways, I applied as both. I ended up applying as both, and they casted me as a sugar artist. And then a couple days later, no, a couple days before I left to go film Holiday Wars, I was on a Zoom chat with my new teammates that I had just met, and I was talking to the casting person, or not the casting, the our producer who was over our team. And he was like, okay, well, when it comes to this and this and that, this is what you need to know. So he's like giving us the rules of the show and giving us more information. And he kind of turned to me in this call and he was like, so Emily, when it comes to the tasting element, this is what you need to know, blah, 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 blah. And I stopped him. I'm like, wait, like, are you talking to me specifically because I'm the sugar artist? He's like, yeah, the sugar artist is typically also the pastry chef. Well, nobody told me that until literally probably like 3 days before I had to leave to go film that show, that I also had to bake. And he did say, he was like, well, you don't have to be the one to bake, but typically the sugar artist is the pastry chef. And I was like, oh, that's news to me. Okay, let me go put this in. Okay. Anyways, I was like, oh, I didn't know that. But he did say, like, it can be somebody else, but typically it would be you. And so I turned to my teammates and I was like, well, do any of you guys know how to bake? And all of them said no. I think every single one of my teammates were like, no, we use box mix. And I was like, oh, no. Like, I just, like, had this realization, like, they can't do this because, um, when you do those shows, especially like the war shows, you're not doing cakes as the tasting element. You're doing like pastries and bonbons and whatever you want to do that the judges can like pluck off of the display and sample, like this tasting element. And so I found out that all of my teammates use box mix to make their cakes for their business. And none of them knew how to bake from scratch. And you can't whip out a box mix cake on these shows, especially when it has to be like a variety of desserts. You can't just keep doing cakes every time. And so it was like, oh no, like I have the most experience at baking. At the time, I didn't know how to bake. Like I barely knew. And that's because I went to a cake design college. It was only a 4-month program, and half of that program was decorating, half of it was baking, but I mostly learned cake baking. And we like dabbled in pastry work and chocolate work, like dabbled, like a little bit. So I was like, oh, I have the most experience. That's not good because that I didn't know I'd have to do that when I applied. And I kind of got shoehorned into that position. Like I wanted to be a cake artist, not even a sugar artist. So, anyways, they were like, no, we don't know how to bake. And as you guys should know, I have over 60 food allergies. At the time, I only knew about 19 or 20 food allergies. So, anyways, I was like, oh, well, I'm allergic to everything. But I guess I'll do it. So, anyways, that was an interesting experience. We did end up winning 2 episodes, and the judges really loved my tasting elements almost every single time. There were some times where I messed up a little bit, but it's fine. It was just like I was still new to that experience of baking for TV shows, and I've learned a lot since then. So yeah, pretty interesting. I kind of just like got thrown into the mix. And then immediately after I did Holiday Wars, when I went and filmed The Big Bake, let's see. Hold on. It's telling me my live stream is experiencing performance issues. So I need to close down some tabs real quick. Oh no. So let's just close some tabs. Sorry, guys. I just want to make sure we don't get cut off. I have been doing a lot of video editing on my computer, so I probably just like have too much space or too much of my RAM being eaten up by that. And hopefully that's good. I've been helping my brother start a podcast. I've been like editing his videos. I'm also doing my master classes, like editing my 3D cake master class on my computer. So I have like a lot of video editing happening. Cool. Um, yeah, so anyways, I went and did the Big Bake immediately after Holiday Wars, like only a couple months later. And I ended up baking on that one as well, even though I didn't really have to. I was like, no, like again, like I had the most experience baking from scratch. So I was like, I'm gonna do it. Don't worry about it. And somehow we ended up winning that episode. And one of the judges, Eddie Jackson, said that it was the best cake he had had on the show so far. So that was crazy. And to this day, I still haven't eaten that cake that I made for the Big Bake. I've eaten components of it, but I haven't had the whole thing together because I'm allergic to quite a few things I put into that cake. So I had peanuts and peanut butter in that cake. I'm allergic to both. It had corn syrup in it, and I just shouldn't eat that. And then it had bananas. I'm not allergic to bananas, but I'm allergic to latex, and if you're allergic to latex, you react to a bunch of other stuff, including bananas. So there's like a lot of things I can't eat in that cake, so I'll never be able to try that cake. But I've heard it's amazing. Um, Super crazy. Okay, I'm just gonna put these in the fridge for a bit so that they can cool down. We're gonna keep heating this up. We're gonna keep chatting. I'll be right back. Okay, now we gotta stir some of this. Okay, so let's talk about compound coating and then we'll go back to other things. So compound coating is a vanilla flavored candy that you can buy. This is also known as candy melts, depending on what brand you get, but the technical term is compound coating. So this is vanilla flavored candy. It's like chocolate, but it's not actually chocolate. This is really great for dipping your apples in. It just adds like another layer, like a nice snap to it. It's not as great as chocolate, but I don't like going through the hassle of tempering chocolate for caramel apples. Okay, just get a spatula in here. So I'm just gonna stir this. Much like chocolate, like you can't overheat your candy melts. If you overheat it, it will seize up and there's no coming back from that. You've wasted it. So I like to work with plastic bowls. I don't like to work with glass because glass retains the heat way too much and it overheats your candy melts way too easily. And we don't want that. So I am just using my compound coating. Sorry, I'm just using my plastic bowl instead. And I'm just stirring it in between to make sure that the heat is being evenly distributed in the bowl. And I usually do about a minute to start with and then 30-second increments until it's fully melted. Okay, 2 seconds, I'll be right back. Okay, just grabbing some piping bags if we want to drizzle anything. I haven't yet decided exactly what toppings we're using or what combination of toppings. We'll just kind of decide as we go, whatever sounds good to me at the moment. Okay, we just got another 30 seconds on this bowl. So you can see that it's like starting to melt on me. That's good. So candy melts don't need to be, they don't have to go through the tempering process like you would with chocolate. And that can be a bit of a hassle to temper your chocolate. It's annoying. It's a little bit time consuming, whatever. We don't have to temper this, which is why a lot of people like candy melts, because you can make candies and bonbons and all that fun stuff with this, and it's just easier. But you should still heat it to, I think it's 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Like you should still heat it to a certain temperature. Otherwise, you get something that's like the blooming effect, and you don't want that. So still heat it to that temperature, otherwise your oils will come to the surface. Now, luckily, I have two microwaves. So we're heating two things at a time. Let me get another spatula out. Okay, I couldn't find just like a dark chocolate or a cocoa flavored candy melt. Apparently, I only have super white and I have my black candy melts. Like, just straight black. Which is a bummer. I wanted cocoa. But it is what it is. Like, I went and stocked up yesterday and I'm like, oh, I already have this at home. And apparently I don't. I couldn't find it. So we're just going to deal with vanilla flavored in white and vanilla flavored in black. Okay. Perfect. Now it's like really starting to get a little bit melty. You can add flavors to your candy melts. You just have to use oil-based flavors. I don't like to do that myself. If you try to add food coloring, you should also add oil-based food coloring. Don't use gels. Don't use water-based like airbrush color. Don't do any of that because if you do that, um, it will actually make your candy melt seize up. So you do have to use oil-based for everything. And sometimes when you start adding stuff like that to your melts, it'll actually make it kind of stiff. Like this is getting liquidy, but it can still get kind of stiff, especially when you add things. So if that's an issue where it's just like it's a little bit stiff even though it's melted, you can add vegetable oil or canola oil to this. It'll help to kind of make it relax. It's really weird what it does to the consistency. Okay, now we have our black. I'm sure this is so fun to watch me do. Okay, now I'm starting to see this melt down really nice. And we should always check the temperature along the way. I like to use infrared thermometers because then you don't have to dip it in, and when you have multiple colors going, you're not having to clean your one thermometer in between. Infrared only measures the surface temperature of what you're pointing it at, so just make sure before you test it that you're stirring your candy melts first. Okay, this is just over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I might have gone a little bit heavy on this one. No, I think we're good. I was like, maybe I shouldn't have done a full 30 seconds on that mix, but I do feel like this is like a little bit stiffer than it should be. It's not so hot that it's, how do I explain this? I haven't overheated this, but I can tell that it's still kind of a little bit stiff. So I'm just going to add some oil, which means I have to go get some oil out of my pantry. But right now I'm at 111 degrees. I'm going to heat this just a little bit more. Okay. Feel free to ask questions all along the way. I usually have more comments by now, but not today. I think this is our fourth bake-along. Okay, so I'm just taking a bit of my canola oil and just adding that in. And it is stiff at first. I won't be able to show it super well. But as I mix this in, it just like makes the whole mixture more liquidy very fast. We'll just make sure that's fully incorporated because I don't want this like super stiff. I want it to be like a nice kind of runny smoothness so that when I dip the apples in, it's a nice coating. Okay, I'm going to test the temperature again. So it's actually at like 114 degrees. I'm going to heat it up just a tiny bit more. Tiny little increments at this point. Let's see where the black is at. I can tell this is at the right consistency. You saw before with the white, when I picked it up, it wasn't just running off my spatula. This one is. That's a good sign. It's not even heated as much as the white. Let's test the white again. See, it's stiff. And it's hotter, so it should be more runny than the other one. It could be that I've just had this for longer. It's been sitting in my pantry for longer because I did have multiple bags, so this might be an older bag and I didn't even realize it. I haven't been doing as much cake decorating, so I'm not using up my ingredients as much as I used to, or not using it up as fast as I'm used to, so that could be a part of it. So I'm just adding more oil to this so I can make it a little bit more runny. And the apples have been sitting in the fridge for a little bit. They should be about ready to bring out. I was starting to get a feet on some of them because I was getting impatient, but that's okay. Okay, so let's take a look at all these different toppings that I have. I had a whole bunch in my pantry and I picked up a few extras. I like to have a variety of flavors. So I've got, these are tiny semi-drop guittard chocolate chips. So I love these. I buy these. They're super, super tiny chocolate chips. And I actually put this in my yogurt all the time. So I bought this mostly for myself, but I thought maybe I'd do one of the caramel apples in tiny chocolate chips. I also got rainbow coated chips. So this is like those chips that you would find in your cosmic brownies. And they're expensive. This is $8 for this little bag. They're really expensive, but I was like, oh, that sounds so good. I love cosmic brownies. So I did get these too. I did get white blossom curls, so these are just like white chocolate curls. I also have dark chocolate curls. I love the texture of them. They're amazing. These I already had in the pantry. I don't know if I'll use them today, but these are just kind of a cheaper quality white chocolate chip that I have. Also kind of bigger chunks. So we'll see if I use those. I have decimated coconut. So this is just like really fine coconut pieces. And they've been toasted, so I thought maybe use those. Um, this was also kind of for myself. I got mini dehydrated marshmallows. I love hot chocolate, who doesn't? And sometimes I make my own marshmallows because I'm technically allergic to marshmallows. They have corn syrup in them, but I bought these anyways. I'm going to put them in my hot chocolate this winter. So yes, tiny little dehydrated marshmallows. I probably won't use these ones, but I grabbed them anyways. Rainbow Jimmy Sprinkles. Okay, so like a funfetti apple. I don't know how this would be. Freeze-dried raspberries. I got these at Trader Joe's. So I don't know, maybe. I do have some crispy rice. I do like crispy rice because it's one of the few things I'm not allergic to. So these are crispy rice, like what you would find in a Bunch of Crunch. I don't have any Oreos right now. Actually, I might have a little bag of like tiny Oreos. I'll go check in a second. I do have some like crushed Oreos. That could be good. And then these are like real tempered chocolate sprinkles that I have. It looks like I'm running low. But you can see I have a lot of different toppings. And that's going to make for some delicious apples. So we'll just get some bowls here. It's going to get really crowded on this table. I once did like a snickerdoodle caramel apple. I'm not a fan of cinnamon myself, but it was basically like the white candy, and then I did some cinnamon sugar on the outside. I think my family really liked that. I love the Oreo one. Who doesn't love cookies and cream? So basically the white chocolate, I could always drizzle the black, so it's like a black and white look, and then just do like a coating of the Oreos on the outside. That could be really good. So I'm going to say yes to that one. Again, I'm low on, I might have just enough Oreos to do that. Okay. Oh, definitely some tiny little chocolate chips. I think that would be good with the Oreos as well. Anything with chocolate is always going to be good. Perhaps on another apple, doing these little rainbow chips. I'll just dump that in, and then I can always put this stuff back in their packaging. So typically with like apples, caramel apples, you want to have all your toppings ready to go because when you dip it in your compound coating or candy melts, you want to add this stuff while it's still setting. So that's why we're pulling this out now, otherwise it can be harder to do later. So we'll just get some chocolate curls. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm going to eat way too many caramel apple slices. I'm going to get so sick to my stomach, and I'm going to be so happy. Okay, just getting my apples. Beautiful. Okay, got to make some room on my table, that's for sure. Ooh. It's hard keeping everything in frame too. I actually have a lot of tables in my kitchen, but this is like my main counter space, and I've got my sink over here. I've got my microwave, so it's easier for me to do my live stream here. But I usually work at this metal table over here. I have two other metal tables over here. I've got another table over here. Like, it's a little bit chaotic trying to do everything. Okay, let's start with these, and then we'll kind of decide from there. I'm also going to put some gloves on because I like to stay sanitary, and I've been all over the place. And I touched my phone a little bit as well, so. And I'm actually serving these apples to other people. Okay. So anyways, going back to talking about these shows. So Holiday Wars, I was kind of shoehorned into being the sugar artist and the pastry chef, which was such a hard experience for me. Big Bake was a better experience for me. And then Halloween Wars, like, I did okay. Like, my whole team struggled. Um, I would say one particular person really struggled last season, and unfortunately, that was enough for all of us to go home. And so, being able to return with a different team and try again was really great. And yeah, I would say that this next season of Halloween Wars, again, win or lose, was such a great experience, and I just got to meet so many people. And I would say it's probably my favorite Food Network experience. It's my favorite. Then the Big Bake is my second favorite experience. Halloween Wars last year, somewhere near the bottom. I would say maybe Santa's Baking Blizzard is in the middle. Then Halloween Wars last year, and then Holiday Wars is at the very bottom. That's the worst experience I've ever had in my life. I have PTSD from that season. I can't talk about it, but the stories I could tell you, oh my gosh, the trauma. I'm still not quite over it. Okay. Hopefully these apples are good enough. We're kind of speed running through this a little bit. I probably should give these like a little bit more time to chill, but eh. They might not be perfect, but they will be edible. That's what matters. I believe covering your caramel all the way to the top will help your apples to last longer. So there's always that. I have heard when it comes to, I don't do strawberry dipped, or sorry, I don't do chocolate dipped strawberries, but I have heard with chocolate dipped strawberries, you have to make them pretty fresh because what happens is chocolate and compound coating and all that fun stuff, when it sets, it actually contracts. So it ends up squeezing your strawberries, and the strawberries, like, they don't last as long because they've been squeezed. Whereas caramel apples, like, first of all, we have the caramel and then we put the candy melts over that. But because the apples are so strong, they're not just being squeezed to death. I actually don't know what the shelf life is like on these because they usually get eaten so fast, but I'm sure the shelf life is like a lot longer than it would be for a strawberry. Okay, let's just go ahead and dip this. So I have my candy melts here. Hopefully it's still hot enough, and I'm just going to dip. And just like the caramel, I'm going to dip and swirl. Okay. Yeah, it's trying to split on me a little bit. That's okay. I just like to scrape off the rest so that I don't get like a huge pool of this on the bottom. Maybe give it a second to kind of set. And then I gotta decide what I'm putting on this apple. Let's just do some Oreos to start with. So I don't have as many Oreos. If I had like a fuller bowl, I would probably just like swirl this into the bowl. Instead, I'm just going to pick up I'm just going to pick up handfuls and just drop it right on top. And then just let some of the excess crumbs just fall. Okay. So anyways, it's been several years now. I've done quite a few Food Network shows. It's been a really interesting experience. I love doing it, but also it's a little bit crazy. And because I've been forced to become a pastry chef, I actually didn't love baking until I did Food Network shows. And then I came back and became obsessed with baking, and I decided I wanted to learn how to do it more so. And so I became like obsessed with the idea of baking. And now I have a Science of Baking Cakes ebook where I talk about the science behind baking because that's how I've learned. I've literally had to learn how to do all this baking purely based off of science. I can't eat most of what I make. Um, and so I've had to rely on other people's taste buds telling me what's good and learning how the science works behind everything. And it's taken me quite a few years to get to the point of understanding it. And I do know like the science behind baking in general, but I would say like my strongest knowledge is in cake baking. So that's why I wrote the Science of Baking Cakes because I'm sorry, but who are you going to trust knows the science more than someone who literally only knows the science behind baking and doesn't know the flavor. Um, yeah, so anyways, like I wrote a book. It has a bunch of recipes in it. You can get it on my storefront if you want. I've had quite a few people buy it so far and they love it. It has a lot of information in there. It's like 120 something pages. And again, it has like a bunch of award-winning recipes. A lot of those recipes are from Food Network shows and just like some of my favorite recipes and some other ones as well. So anyways, it's like a good collection of recipes that have gotten me through my business for all these years. Fun stuff. Look at that apple. Okay, so I ended up doing Oreo cookie crumble on the bottom, and then I did a layer of those tiny mini chips. And then I actually want to do something else with this one. So let me get my black candy melts. Okay, so I have my black melts here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to back this up real quick. Where are my piping bags? I literally brought out like two little flimsy piping bags, and now I don't see them. Oh, here they are. Okay. My counter space is crowded. Don't mind me. Okay, so all I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my flimsy bag. Okay. And then I have my black melts here. So I usually just pour it right in. I just have it flipped inside out, pour it right into the bag. Okay. I like to put a bag clip on this so that it doesn't go everywhere. And then I'm just going to cut a little bit off the end, not too much. Let's get some of these other apples out of the way so I don't accidentally get this everywhere. But hopefully you guys can see this okay. I just have a tiny snippet off the end of this piping bag, and it's just going to do a very light stream. I don't know if you can see that. And I'm just going to do a cute little drizzle on top, okay? So I'm just going to go back and forth. And let's just do this in sections. So all kind of just crisscrosses over each other. My piping bag just burst. It's a good thing I moved my other caramel apples out of the way, though. Ooh. I can be a little chaotic in the kitchen. Sorry, guys. Okay, anyways, so I'm going to need this apple to sit because the compound, or I keep switching back and forth. I'm just going to call it candy melts. The candy melts still need to cool. But look at that beautiful apple. That looks like something you could buy from like a professional. I'm going to set this over here. Okay. Oh no. The caramel's still kind of trying to set. Okay. Let's do another apple. So let's dip this one in the white as well. Just dip and swirl. I don't know if you can see the candy melts because this white one was a lot more stiff. It's trying to kind of crack a little bit or split. I don't know how to explain what that effect is. Anyways, I'm not going to worry about it too much because it mostly gets covered in toppings anyways. But hopefully you're using like fresher candy melts and it's not doing that to you. Okay? Cool. What should I put on this one? Actually, I think I'm going to come back to this one. I think I want to dip this in the dark one as well and then do these like beautiful rainbow things. Okay, so this apple, I do have a pretty big feet on it. And let's just try to cut that off because I feel like that's just too much. That just kind of dripped off of this apple because I did dip these at slightly different temperatures. Look at that. Now you won't even be able to tell that it had this big ugly feet on the bottom. I'm just going to throw this back into my bowl of caramel. Okay. Ooh, let's do a black and white situation. Okay, so I don't have very much black in here. Let's just kind of bring this down here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip this apple in black. And I usually like that caramel on top to still be noticeable. If you wanted to, you could dip the entire apple so you don't see the caramel, or you don't see the apple and you don't see the caramel. I like a little bit of the apple exposed, and I like a little bit of that caramel exposed. I think it's just pretty. I think it's nice to just see all the layers that's involved, but maybe other people have different opinions on that. Okay. All right. Let's do the white curls. Move some stuff out of the way. I think this would be really pretty. And then we're just going to drop this right on there. You have to be very careful with these white chocolate curls. I have very hot hands, and so I have to be careful picking them up and not overheating the curls. Okay. Some of them are trying to come off. That's okay. I probably should let this cool down a little bit more. I don't really care. I'm not selling these. They don't need to be perfect. Okay, I'm going to put this off to the side. Beautiful. I did ruin some curls because some of that black did drop back down into the bowl. It's fine. Okay, we're about at an hour, so we don't need to finish entirely. But let's see. I wanted to dip this in the dark one as well, but I think that needs to set a while longer before I try to do that. And I do want to wrap this up a little bit because we are at the hour mark. So let's just do a rainbow one real quick, and then maybe we'll sign off. Anyways, yes, so Halloween Wars airs this Sunday, September 22nd. It is the All-Star season. I'm so excited to be returning, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I did. I hope you guys love my teammates as much as I did. I think we pop really well on camera because we got along so well with each other, and we just had a lot of fun. If you watch the commercials, you can see us having a little bit of fun together, and it was just a fun experience. Would I do it again? I don't know. Having fun and wanting to try to recreate that fun again I don't know. I definitely want to do other shows. I've done 5 shows already. You'll definitely see me on Food Network again. Um, I just don't know if I'd ever return to Halloween Wars or Holiday Wars. I might be done with those shows because I think I'm just at a point where I only want to choose my teammates moving forward, and just make sure that like I vibe really well with them, which obviously I did a lot on this season. Um, but that's not always the case. And I think I'm just at a point where it's like, no, I just want people who take this very seriously and are really enjoying the experience. Um, you know, some people get there and realize it's too hard for them, and or it's not what they expected. And I think I just only want to work with experienced people at this point who like are happy and just want to be there and just want to like vibe and have fun. Because after 5 shows, I'm only there to win. Okay, when you get to this many shows, you're only there to win. It's leading up into this point, and so he's like, I get on these shows, I'm like, I don't care if I win, like it's so much fun, and it's just like I'm here to vibe with everybody, and that's great, But after so many shows, it's like, no, I'm only doing this because I only want like I want to win. I do have a great time, um, but it's like you start taking it more seriously because it's like this is more shows than most people that I know have done. I know people have done way more than this, but yeah, it's like you only keep coming back if you take it seriously, right? Okay. There's my beautiful rainbow one. I don't want to cover the whole thing because this is expensive to do this topping. I'm trying to decide if I want to do like more stuff on the top. Maybe I'll do like a drizzle or something. And I do have colored candy melts. That could be fun. I can tell this needs to set before I put it down. Okay, let's take a look at the caramel apples we do have. Bring these back into frame. So you can see how easy it is to get caramel apples. It's a little bit of a time-consuming process, but that's totally fine. So we have this like beautiful black and white one that is Oreos, cookies and cream. I love cookies and cream everything, especially milkshakes, so that's going to be a great one. I guess this one is also on that same theme of black and white. And then this one I can't pick back up until it sets. But the rainbow chips, that's going to be a really fun one. I'm probably going to do like a marshmallow one. I thought I had graham cracker, and I was actually going to do a s'mores one. That would have been so fun. I don't know if I'll still do a s'mores one. I'll probably do that later. But I needed like actual chocolate or at least cocoa flavored candy melts, which I can't find. So if I were to do like this, I would probably wait until I have a cocoa flavored candy melt, or actually tempered chocolate. Dip one of these in tempered chocolate and then do these like marshmallows and do crushed up graham cracker, and that would be the Oreo, or sorry, the s'mores. I think that would be delicious. So, anyways, I'm going to kind of decide what my last three are. If I were to do something like the freeze dried raspberries, I'm assuming that goes with apples. It would be very tart. That would be a very tart one, but I feel like some people would love that. You could take like the freeze dried raspberries and you could crush that up and do like a beautiful kind of red crushed raspberries on the outside. It would add a nice crunch to it as well. Um, you could probably mix that into your candy melts as well. That would be interesting. That would be really interesting instead of just putting it on the outside. Um, I'm trying to think of what other flavors I've seen out there, but yeah, coconut might be interesting. I'm very allergic to coconut, so I don't know if I want to do this one, but maybe my family would really enjoy the coconut one. So maybe I'll do the coconut with something else when I decide what that's going to be. Um, and then one more note when it comes to caramel apples. I recommend using green apples. I'm sure you guys probably already know that green apples are the ones you typically use. But green apples, they're a lot of red apples can be very soft. They don't have as much of a crisp bite to them. And so that softness doesn't really pair well with everything else that's happening. But when you have that like nice crunch, crisp green apple, that that texture pairs really well with the caramel, and it the flavor of the tartness of the green apples, that sour bite really complements the caramel and the chocolate as well. So definitely always use Granny Smith apples. I've never seen anyone use any other apples, and you'd be crazy to do it. Okay, well, that's it. I'll see you guys on Halloween Wars this Sunday, and we'll see how far I get this season. Hopefully, I don't get eliminated in my first episode again, because that would be so tragic. And join me again for another live stream next month. I don't remember what I decided on. I've already picked something for next month. We'll have to see what it is. So next month I'll do another live stream at some point. I haven't picked the dates yet either. So just the same as this, we'll sit down, we'll do the live stream, and you guys can ask questions, and we'll be further along into this season of Halloween Wars as well, so we can talk a little bit more into detail about like how I am doing on the show, whether or not I've been eliminated on the show yet, all the fun stuff, and hopefully like have fun talking about that. Okay, I'm gonna go. Happy Halloween and happy baking. Bye. end it.